Welcome to the second video in our ORB setups onboarding guide. By the end of this video, you'll know how to use the live scanner to find high probability setups every single day. This is video number 2 in our 6-video onboarding series, and by the end of this video, you'll be able to log in, use the scanner to find setups every single day, and know exactly what each of these filters mean, along with which setups you want to focus on. Now let's start first with understanding the scanner interface. There's two key sections here to pay attention to, the left-hand side and the right-hand side. The left-hand side is where you'll find all of the filters. The filters are what helps you narrow down the trade setups. You'll notice otherwise there's a large list, and the filters are how you can go from that large list of stocks down to something a little bit more manageable. So let's start with today as an example. It's currently 11:39 a.m. Pacific, so a little less than an hour and a half left. And I'm going to change this live trade status filter from open trades only to all trades so we can see how many setups there's been today. A total of 2,221. And if we start with the market bias, very clearly the market bias is towards the bullish side here. We can see the long side is very clearly winning. So we can find long setups that might still be active. That's a good starting point. So on the left, we use our filters to narrow down this trade setup. So trade direction filter, I can select all. The next thing I can do is inside of our live trade status, now that we know the total market bias, let's look at just the open trades. If we come back to the market bias, you'll notice this is now updated since we've now been looking at just the long trades. Now we don't see any of the short setups. There's still 269 setups, so how do we narrow down? That's a large list. We can find setups like XLU at the top of the list, along with some other recognizable names. But some quick ways that we could filter this down are with technical filters. So I could use something like, hey, where do we have stacked moving averages on the bullish side with the long setups on the daily time frame? Now we're down to 174. Let's look at this 174 in more detail. Maybe we want just the S&P 100. Now we have a much smaller list of stocks, 16, in which we still have open active setups. Now on this table, let's click one of them. Most of these, you should notice, show an R to R of 2, 1. That's a risk of 2 for a reward of 1. I don't really like that unless this P&L is red, where I know that I'm getting a better entry than the entry price in which I had to risk 2. Now I'm able to skew that risk to reward a little bit more in my favor. So that's one quick way that I can narrow this down. Another way that you could narrow down this risk to reward filter, if I remove this EMA bull, is by using the targets and the stop filters down here. If we were to say use the full target, now we know that our reward must be 2 as well. So now we're finding risk 2 to make 2 trades. If you wanted to find setups in which you were risking 1 to make 2, there you would select the PBT1 filter. Currently, there's just one trade setup active with that filter, and that's inside of EXC. If we open this up, we can see the entry price, the target price, and the stop price, along with the live P&L. You'll also find what the average range is, which is 43 cents versus today's range, which is 29 cents, much lower compared to our average. If you wanted to dive deeper into this particular symbol's backtest for this 15-minute ORB pullback strategy, just click on the symbol, and that will now load the EXC 15-minute ORB pullback backtest, so you can dive into this in a little bit more detail. Now let's come back to our PowerPoint, and we can dive into these filters in a little bit more detail so you understand exactly what each filter is and what it measures. So let's start with the market bias filter. We saw the market bias filter at the top, and you saw how dynamic it was. It adapts to the filters that you've selected. What the market bias filter does, especially early on in the morning when you have the 5, the 15, and the 30-minute coming in, is it tells you what direction is the market trending in. So in today's case, for example, very clearly trending in the bullish direction. This was taken early on in the morning. And we can see just how clearly the bulls came out of the gate running. So the market bias is a good place to get started, which allows you to apply the trend direction filter. Now, speaking of the trend direction filters, here are the different filters that we have available to us. At the top, very, very top, is the save and load settings. So say you find a set of filters you really like, just click the save icon, and now anytime you refresh the page, those default settings that you selected will automatically load without you needing to do anything on your end. It's a handy way for those of you once you find a nice group of settings that really works for your trading style. The second set of filters that you can use are the watch list. The default watch list that we have are the all symbols in S&P 100, but you can create your own watch list by clicking watch list at the top, create new list, and add the symbols from our supported list, and you can load in your own custom watch list. What this means is that you can also get the market bias for your custom watch list as well, since it's dynamic. The next set of filters are the technical analysis filters. These are one-click filters, as you saw. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about what goes on to each technical analysis filter, just hover over this tooltip and you'll be able to see what each of the definitions are for all of these filters. They all operate on the daily time frame chart. So EMA Bull, for example, looks for stacked bullish EMAs on the daily time frame. After that, we have the win rate, which helps us answer the question, is this strategy probable? I like to look for greater than 60%. Sometimes if you don't find many trade setups, you can also come down to 50%, and that's a way you could widen the net a little bit. The next filter around performance is expectancy, and this helps answer the question, is the strategy profitable? So the first is it probable? The second, is it profitable? Finally, we have our liquidity filters, the trade direction filter, which we saw where we join the market bias, especially early on in the morning. Then you can narrow down between open and closed trades. This is especially useful if you're doing some end of day research. And finally, we have the ORB style filters. These are the filters that you'll want to adapt based off of your trading style. In the next video, I'll break down what each of these two strategies are, but you might find that you really like the pullback strategy and the breakout doesn't necessarily fit your trading style. In that case, stay true to the pullback strategy, and there you might have the 1-1 and the 1-2 risk-reward trades that you focus on. Same idea with the ORB ranges. The 5, the 15, and the 30-minute ranges are there, and you can pick and choose the ones that work for you. Now with the performance filters, we've already talked about how they help you answer two key questions, but one point that I want to call out, which a lot of traders forget, a higher win rate doesn't necessarily mean that that leads to more profit. In fact, a higher win rate in which you had to risk 2 to make 1 could, in a lot of times, lead to lower profit than a scenario in which you had, say, a 45% win rate, like we do in the pullback setups, but we get to risk 1 to make 2. You do not need to be right as many times, but when you are right, it allows you to get a much bigger reward that helps you in the long run. This is also where the trade expectancy comes in, making sure that this number right here is positive. And that's a default filter. We don't look for negative trade expectancy trades. Next up, we have the technical analysis filters, which more or less are straightforward. The only one that I think is a little finicky or maybe a little new is this 3-8. And that's looking for the 3 EMA to either cross above the 8 for recent momentum shift or cross below for a recent momentum shift to the bearish side. So a quick way to bring momentum into an already momentum-based setup. Finally, we have the 3 different ORB ranges. And you'll notice even in the scanner, when you come down on the left-hand side here, you'll be able to choose between these 3 filters if you did want to pick and choose one. Now, if you're trading the breakouts, this is where I think these start to really become important in understanding what is your trading style and how do you like to trade. The 5-minute moves, especially early in the morning, are quick. Pullbacks are a good way to catch the missed trades, but if you're trading breakouts, a lot of these you need to be sitting there like a hawk, watching the scanner, being ready to take advantage of any moves. And in a lot of times, you can also do this research ahead of time with the backtester and even the reports to know exactly which symbols you want to enter as soon as that trade triggers. So the 5-minute requires you to be quick and agile, especially for the breakouts. The 15-minute is a little bit more balanced. I like the 15-minute and the 30-minute a lot. The 30-minute is a nice way to have larger risk rewards. I think it's the calmer approach, and the 15-minute a lot of times has some really nice setups that still hang around as the day goes on, like this one that we're seeing inside of EXC. 15-minute and 30-minute, I think, are the sweet spot for most traders. For every single setup, you have this data-driven confidence that we're trying to build. So for example, if we come back to this EXE setup here and we take a look at what the stats tell you, you know the win rate is there, you know there's a total P&L that's positive, you know the strategy has a positive trade expectancy, and we know that the risk to reward is on our side. In the next video, we're going to dive into both of these strategies in much more detail, and I'll show you some visual examples that helps you go from just these performance-based charts to Thinkorswim-based charts that allows you to trade these moves like this one inside of Exelon.